Hey friends. I love the 1937 Snow White movie. It is so charming. Before this video, I hadn't rewatched this movie in a long time, and I am so glad I did. It was excellent. It does have a few flaws, like the pacing is really inconsistent, Snow White's rotoscope face didn't really age well, and the Queen doesn't really have enough screen time. But I can easily forgive these flaws because of how charming and wonderful this movie is. Like, the dwarves, I love these guys so much. They're so expressive and full of life, and I love it. This movie is very character driven and it shows. I would not be as invested if I didn't give a crap about any of these characters, and I really do. This does kind of result in not much happening in the movie, but I really do not care. This movie is amazing, I love it, and I can easily see why it was such a huge hit. This entire film is a delight from start to end. I would highly recommend it. Oh right, this isn't a video about real movie, this is about the Snow White remake with Rachel Zegler in it. Maybe another day. So, as you're currently watching this video right now, you probably have one major question that you're asking me. Why are you starting this review of a remake by talking about the original film? 1. I have been a fan of this movie prior to the remake coming out, but the remake really helped me appreciate what we actually had already. And even disregarding that, this movie is so charming. This rewatch really did this film justice. It's not a perfect movie per se, but it is one that I truly love. When this film released back in 1937, it was a huge hit. This film really showed everybody what Walt Disney, his team, and the art of animation itself could accomplish. And 2. There is talk of this remake everywhere. I really needed a palate cleanser. Pretty much everything surrounding this movie is being talked about on Twitter and TikTok, and I just really needed to talk about the original. Call it a bit of a shallow reason, but we really had it good with this movie. And I'm not just saying that because, oh, old thing good, but new thing bad. Far from it. I just wanted to discuss real movie after seeing the remake. Once I saw the IMDb score and noticed that it was lower than any other movie that I have ever covered on this channel, I had to prepare. I had to mentally prepare for this movie. I was ready for some true awfulness. Something that was comparable to my least favorite movie of all time. But now, here's the million-dollar question. Is it just as bad as everybody says it is? Yes. Yes, it is. This film is abominable. This is one of the most corporate pieces of garbage I have ever witnessed. The decent singing is probably the only thing I can give to this empty void of a film. Every single piece of whimsy or charm from the original is completely gone. The new versions of Heigh and Whistle While You Work are okay, but they genuinely frustrate me to no end. Heigh just for some reason has this big orchestra in the background and the dwarves belting out these high notes even though it's supposed to be a simple work song, not a Broadway number. Whistle While You Work has the exact same issue but to a greater degree. Rachel Zegler is belting out these big ass notes, but in the original, Snow White was just simply humming a nice little tune while she works. In this one, Rachel Zegler and the 7 CGI abominations just keep singing and dancing instead of actually doing any work, which completely destroys the purpose of the song. Whistle While You Work is supposed to be a nice, simple, charming little work song, not a big bombastic musical number. Rachel Zegler, who I also refer to as RZ, has an alright voice, but it feels like she's showboating and I hate it. It reminded me of Beyonce's obvious showboating in the Lion King remake. The CGI dwarves look awful. They look worse than the characters from Polar Express, which came out 20 years prior to this movie. Dopey looks like my new sleep paralysis demon.
Oh, it's disgusting.
The acting is complete shit, especially with Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot comes off like a robot because she cannot express emotions for the life of her. The costumes look like Halloween costumes you would find in a bargain bin, just like this entire movie. There's a scene later in the movie in which the evil queen turns into the old lady, and the editing is so bad. Why are there 9 different shots in 13 seconds? It reminded me of the editing from Mulan 2020. It is hideous. Bad costumes, washed out colors, terrible editing. This film is a visual disaster. It is really ugly to look at. But I think most of the blame for why this film is so bad is the god-awful writing. Holy crap, the writing is dreadful. There's a bunch of really forced plot points, like the evil queen needing to learn to share her food with the rest of her subjects, I guess. This is supposed to be a big budget theatrical film, not a Disney Junior show. There's also a bunch of forced plot lines, like Snow White wanting to find her father even though she doesn't act on it at all. There's a random group of bandits and the leader Jonathan basically replaces the prince, and he has absolutely no chemistry with Snowy at all. I love how before this movie's release, RZ was bitching about how the prince saves her in the end. But Jonathan does the exact same thing in this movie, so what is even the point? He fills the exact same role anyway and saves her in the exact same way, so what was the point of Rachel Zegler bitching about it? The only thing that's even changed about the ending of this film is that there's a forced plot line where the evil queen needs to be overthrown by Snow White. I am losing my mind. I guess the controversy about the original movie's ending was just pulled right out of the ass. And Snow White's character just feels more Flanderized if anything. In the original 1937 film and in the original story by the Brothers Grimm, Snow White and her animal friends help clean around the house as a nice gesture. The point of this gesture is that she's the fairest in the land, and of course she'd be willing to help out and be nice to people regardless of what she thinks of them. She didn't even know who lived in this house and did it as a nice gesture because she's the fairest in the land. She's fair on the inside and the outside. In the 2025 version, RZ is just singing and dancing while all the dwarves are forced to help out. She's not even doing it out of the kindness of her own heart anymore. She forces them to do it. And besides Dopey for like one scene, she's barely even nice to the dwarves at all, which, might I remind you, is the entire point of her character. My hatred for this movie only increases the more I think about it. This movie does not deserve any scores above a 0 out of 10. It is irredeemable. Fuck this movie, do not ever watch it. I'm sorry, but this movie is just genuinely exhausting. At least with the other bad movies I've covered on my channel, they can sometimes be fun to talk about and rant about. But Snow White 2025 is soul draining. In fact, I'm gonna give a compliment to each of the worst movies I have ever seen. My original least favorite movie of all time at least has some decent costume designs. Despicable Me 4 has some good cameos at the end. Hop had David Hasselhoff. Alexander and the Long Title Road Trip had a Nintendo Switch cameo. The Trolls trilogy had okay animation. And these abominations are entertaining and aren't completely miserable to talk about. But this thing, it broke me. It is genuinely a pain in the ass to find any redeeming factors about this abomination. I have nothing more to say. I'm so done. I need a fucking break. I need to watch a real movie instead. So, I'm gonna have May talk about what I've told her about this movie. Enjoy!
Hello. This is going to be a bit of a change of pace from my usual stuff, but I wanted to try something different for this video. I just did not have the spoons to really make anything new for this video, but the thought was there, so take solace in that. Anyway, as the resident woman of the team, and the fact that I am basically the resident folklorist and historian, I feel like I have a lot to say. Now, the girl boss is not an inherently harmful archetype. It's like the general idea was not really that bad, I guess. It wasn't awful, to say at least. It was a way to encourage young women to strive to be the best versions of themselves they can be. And everything was great back then. That's what most children's media, especially some of my favorite forms of media, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, that's what they went for. However, what we see here in Snow White, it's not that. Definitely not that. Remakes in general have always failed this, and modern Disney in general has failed at this. However, I feel like this is the most egregious example in recent history. This movie outright shames girls who are feminine and gentle. At least that's how it feels. Saying that they need to be tough and boyish, but not so boyish that the big, strong men feel superior still. What a good message. Not so boyish that they're no longer girls in the eyes of the public or themselves. They need to be perfect, and so perfect that they'll help any boy who demands their attention, as if they deserve it. Now, I am a woman who grew up on these messages. It was in almost every female marketed media I knew. I can, like, off the top of my head, I know My Little Pony was a good example. Not too obvious about it either. Point is, I am now sick of it. There's more than, or at least sick of how it's done. There is more than one way to be a quote girl boss. The current standard for girl boss actively excludes other women. What about the soft, delicate woman who happen to like doing things around the house? Maybe that's just what they prefer doing. Maybe that's just their preference. It could just be a personal preference. You're saying she's wrong for wanting to do that sort of thing? What about the trans girl who doesn't know who she wants to be? What about the girls who work very hard but aren't confrontational? Like they want to fight for what they have, but they don't like fighting. Maybe they're not too confrontational. What about the women who have kids? What about the women who have to pick themselves up after escaping a terrible situation? This movie this movie, or at least people who made this movie, mean to say sound like this isn't that they aren't valid because of it, and it's not right. It doesn't sit right with me because that's just outright that's a horrible thing to tell people. You need to be a specific way, or else you're not girl boss enough, I guess. Just because all the people I mentioned don't fit into this corporate milquetoast narrative that all girls have to be masculine and have to be loud and strong and lacking in individuality to be considered a girl boss, which is not the case at all. So that's just brilliant, isn't it? And that's just fucking stupid. It's actively harmful to girls and femme-presenting people to tell them shit like this. I guess everyone's a feminist unless there's a spider around, you know? Just, it's harmful and toxic to tell young girls you need to be loud and masculine and reject anything soft and feminine and pink. People don't like girls who are soft and feminine and want something something different out of life, and Angelica's mom from Rugrats. In the case of Snowy here, it's even worse. I can't speak personally for every woman here. I am just me. In my opinion, I don't think everyone wants to live that sort of life. And that's fine. They're allowed to do that. That's their right as a human being, as an individual. As Way of the House Husband, an anime, like a decent slice of life anime, has proven being a house spouse is a valid way to live your life, and if that's what you're happy with. It's not inherently a ball and chain full-time job. If that's what you enjoy, if that's what you want out of life, then go you. I'm glad you're happy, because that's what matters. What matters is personal happiness, but it shouldn't come at the cost of your individuality. I'll admit that I'm not the most girly girl, but I have been accepting my femininity more since graduating high school. And I think Snow White in the classic film is the toughest woman I have ever met. It takes nerves of steel to survive an attempted murder solicited by your stepmother. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Not only that, she was abused, neglected, and then she was lost in the forest and then practically homeless for a while. And then she was fed a poisoned apple near the end of the film, and she still came out of it kind. She was rescued by the prince. She wasn't bitter. She still went out of her way to be kind to others. That takes some serious strength. Like, that is some genuine strength. Rachel Zegler can shut up about it. Ultimately, any girls and young women watching should know this. Just be yourself. Experiment. There's no shame in being unironically yourself, no matter what any piece of shit has to say about it. They're, they say that because they're mad that you're happy and they're not. And if you're happy, you're winning. There's no shame in being unironically yourself without regard for how people perceive you. Throw glitter in the eyes of creepy men, for all I care. Make weird crafts. Kill people. Maybe not that last one, but you get my point.
You get it!
It doesn't matter. It takes balance and spite. But maybe, just maybe, I should actually be thanking this movie. Without it, I never would have realized that I, an autistic person, am aware enough of social interactions to acknowledge these things and know shit like this. I'm able to acknowledge that different types of strength exist. When I explained this exact gripe with the movie's message to my dad, he told me to my face that he was proud of me. He was proud that I was able to identify that. And that's not even the least of my issues. Moving on to the film itself. This film is a crime against the medium. It looks fugly. The sound is bad. Just genuinely horrible. Terrible, horrible, no good. Lighting is so dark you'd have to sit in pitch darkness, like in pitch black, for hours on end. Hours and hours. Like hours and hours and hours. Not even that, just 20 minutes to see anything that they're doing, that these characters are doing. And that shit's not okay. The dwarves look like even worse versions of Thing 1 and 2 from live action Cat in the Hat. Just because they look good in a drawing does not mean they work in real life. The cinematography, ass. The lighting, worse. The acting, I'd get better performances from Rhapsody Street Kids Believe in Santa. And I'm not even at the one thing I'm more passionate about than the message of this trash fire that managed to be worse than the Sega Fire car. The writing. Dear God, the writing. God help us all. This film set a new record for how many writers it can make roll in their graves. In less than an hour. Oh, that's not impressive either. That's genuinely insulting. You have not just Walt Disney, thereby breaking breaking reality, because if you remember, Walt Disney was cremated, but also the Brothers Grimm and every other person who has collected these stories throughout the centuries it has existed. Not to mention everyone who worked on the original film, who, mind you, is long dead by now. DED, dead. Dead, buried in the ground. I thought The Little Mermaid demake was disrespectful to Hans Christian Andersen's legacy. I really thought that. Until this movie. I thought Wish was the biggest middle finger this company could give to Walt Disney himself. And then this movie happened. It apparently got worse. So much worse. Let's start by discussing what made the original film work. Snow White, for all intents and purposes, she was a very simple. The story was simple. A girl and her mother or stepmother both are conventionally attractive, but one is also beautiful at heart, while the other is a shitty human being. The point of the story is that the evil queen is inherently selfish and self-serving.
Editor's note, there is an actual line in this film that just says, she isn't just a queen, she's evil. That is a real fucking line in this movie. I wish I was joking.
So much so that when she learns she's not the fairest in the land, she is more than willing to kill to get what she wants. But because Snow White is kind and generous, she ultimately wins the day and lives happily ever after. One argument against the original film is that women being jealous of each other is harmful. Though I see what people mean, this is not how I'd approach it. Like it or not, people need to have flaws to be identifiable and likable. Snow White, as fair as she is, as fair as she is also gullible and naive. Yeah, she's also gullible. This is to offset the fact that her mother is intelligent, but ultimately vain and self-serving. Basically, the flaws have a purpose. The other argument is that Snowy is not conventionally strong as a character. However, that was never the point of her character. The point of her character was never to be this strong warrior woman. That was Mulan's job. Yes, some iterations of her are stronger than others. I can't deny that for a nanosecond. But this film was made as an adaptation of the Brothers Grimm version of this story, which is a banger. Like the Brothers Grimm, bangers. In this version, she was always emotionally strong. She was not your conventional girl boss. That was never the point. The purpose of her story was to teach the values of being kind and respectful to other being kind and respectful to others, to young children. That is it. That is the entire reason this exists. The remake spits in the not remake, demake spits in the face of this. Rachel Zegler fundamentally does not understand the character that she was erroneously chosen to play. The way Snow White is portrayed is counter to everything the story stands for. She makes the dwarves do all the work. She takes over the kingdom herself. She don't need no man. The entire point of the story is how Snow White is a quiet and peaceful type who earns the good that happens to her by being kind to others. Fundamentally, Disney does not understand fairy tales anymore. And here's the thing. They know this. They couldn't even stick with the whole Snow White is strong and independent thing. They couldn't even stick with the narrative that they wanted to tell. Because, as Dylan told me in his viewing, the prince replacement still has to save her in the end. He still has to save her. Oh yeah, and the corpse is still kissed on the lips. So all of that amounted to nothing. All of that amounted to nothing. Now, what was that one line from Nostalgia Critic? Let me just think for a minute. Tappa tappa tappa. Right. I have to quote Nostalgia Critic. By having grown up humor, you make it more childish. By modernizing the dialogue, you make it more dated. And by changing the source material, you show how much you don't respect what's already perfect. I'm not going to act like everything, in this case Disney, wrote was a masterpiece, but when he got it right, he got it right. They don't need to be updated. They don't need to be fixed. They don't even really need to have remakes made of them. But if you're going to do it, the very least you can do is understand the source material. But of course I understand the source material. They're just simple kids' movies. But no, they're not just simple kids' movies. They're stories that we continue to read even to this day. Or at least watch, even today. They're stories that we remember years later, even when other stories fade from our memory. They're stories we will never forget, and for good reason. They're stories that helped shape our childhoods, well thought out writing, imaginative drawings, and endearing morals. And the idea of these remakes. Note that I said these remakes. It's not just this one. Shaping anyone's childhood makes me sick to my stomach. Maybe these simple kids' films are far more adult than they're given credit for. And I guarantee that'll show when years later, both children and adults will still be watching these simple kids' movies, while pandering bullshit like these remakes disappears out of people's consciousness, also for good reason. Good art doesn't come from focus groups and statistics. It comes from people who share how they see things in their own unique way. And I think that sums it up perfectly. I'm not going to pretend like Nostalgia Critic was this perfect human being. Obviously, he isn't. No human being is. But I agree with him here. When you actively misunderstand what worked about your own project, is the moment you have failed as a creative force. And they're still going with this shit. They're still going with this shit. They haven't canned anything. They haven't tried to make things better. They're just insisting on the same bullshit even when as of recording, this movie is currently at what was it? 1.6 on IMDb. It is being universally panned. Universally panned. This is sickening. No, not that one. Anyway, I got distracted. I have some really strong feelings on this. And I hate to ramble on for hours and hours. But the point needs to be made. The remakes misunderstand what makes this work. And it's unforgivable. Fuck this movie and everything it stands for. I'll say it again from the rooftops. I'll shout it from the rooftops. Fuck this movie and everything it stands for. Thank you for listening to this rant. And thanks for letting me rant, Dylan. Love you.
Goodbye, everyone. We'll remember you all in therapy. And please stay tuned when I review the remake of my all-time favorite movie. Please, please, please don't make it bad, Disney. I beg of you. The Poison Apple was the best character in this movie, no contest. What a legend.